Hello out there. We're live, BC.
On the internet.
You know, and we should be nervous because typically these things are picking up about 7 views out there. And I haven't checked the view duration. It might be 30 seconds or more. Each of those views has to be 30 seconds or more. We're doing it.
Watch out, world. Here we come.
Here we are. Here we are, world. I'm awake.
We're here. We're here. We're doing it. You ready for a patented Cargo Bay intro?
Yeah.
Just a banger.
Hey out there, if you want to hear our intro music and, a more professional podcast, you just check us out on our website. Check out the pod on your favorite podcatcher.
Wherever you get podcasts.
My daddy makes me a list. He sends it to me on a flash drive.
I get a monthly newsletter from my family about what I should be listening to on podcasts. I can forward that newsletter to any of you. Just email us at thecargobaypod@protonmail.com.
Yeah.
Which we definitely check
all the time, every day.
All the time. Yep, all the time.
For sure.
Absolutely.
All right, BC, you take her away whenever you're ready. I'm ready.
Toot, toot, all aboard. Hello there, and welcome to the Cargo Bay, a Star Wars conversation podcast being transmitted to you from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I am Brady C, here with my co-host, as always,
Adam B. How's it going, BC?
Howdy doody. It's going, my friend.
How would you like it if in Star Wars, in the Star Wars universe, they just started saying howdy doody a lot?
I'm for it.
Yeah, I would love it.
I'm for as many hoodies, thermal shirts that you can see, howdy doody, any human cultural references. I'm actually for. I don't mind.
Yeah, let's do it. Little clamp lights.
Mm-hmm. A little calf.
A little calf. Yeah, we brought in the calf. Brought in the calf to this show because BC, we're talking about Andor, episodes 1 through 3.
Holy samoli, it's here. It's happening.
We did wind up putting off our short story. We'll cover that in the future. And I think the reason we did, BC, or at least on my part, is I like this show. I think it's much better than, and not to say like, oh, other shows are bad. I'm just saying this is right up my alley, whereas Star Wars stuff isn't always, aside from it being Star Wars, if that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense. So obviously, yes, we're talking the first 3 episodes of Andor, which released this past Wednesday? Yes. Wednesday. Yeah. They're coming out on Wednesday, so we got the drop of the first 3 episodes all at the same time. Heads up, if you haven't watched them, go away. We're going to be talking about
spoily time.
Spoily time. We're going to be talking about them. We're going to be talking about all the things that we liked, things that we didn't like, which is probably not a whole lot, because I think you and I are both generally pretty enthusiastic about this series. But that's your general spoiler warning for this episode, as we'll be talking about Andor episodes 1 through 3. Yes, we have put off the Squadron short story from the Star Wars Adventure Journal. I know everyone, I know you're all clamoring for our Star Wars Adventure Journal content. Rest assured, we will get there. But we thought with 3 episodes this week, it's going to be a little hard to give that Adventure Journal all of the attention that it so rightly deserves. So we will add that on to our next week's episode, where we only have 1 episode of Andor to cover as opposed to 3. So all you cargo babies out there, just settle down. You are going to get your Adventure Journal episode content. Do not worry.
That's a promise.
That is a Cargo Bay promise. And those are good as gold. Or credits.
Or calamari flan.
Yeah, or calamari flan. Or a delicious dish of mon calamari.
BC, I'd like to clarify something I said earlier in the podcast already.
Please do, yes. Please.
Here's how I feel about this show, BC. I love Star Wars. Big Star Wars fan. I loved Obi-Wan. I would say that I liked Boba Fett. And I'm a big fan of Mando. This show, as someone who was a film minor in Central Arkansas, as someone who has
Ooh!
a little bit of a critical eye for
Oh!
cinema,
Oh! I see you wearing your tuxedo today too, as well.
this is the first Star Wars project maybe since Episode 7 came out. When Episode 7 came out, I remember telling people like it's a fun movie, like it's good. You'll like it, I think. This is the first thing that I would tell a stranger. I think this is good. Like,
Mhm.
I think this
Mhm.
is objectively good, and you can argue with me about what objectively good is or whatever. I'm just saying this fits my my. This is what I would not be embarrassed to tell someone like, "Hey, I like this show a lot, stranger." Like, I'll stand behind it in most aspects of its production
Mhm.
and performances and general storytelling. I'm really excited about that. It
It
makes me feel good.
yeah, it does feel like it in terms of quality, it's on another level. So far, right? We're
Yeah,
3 episodes in, but 3 very promising episodes of what is going to be in total a 24 episode series.
and then it has
Uh,
to be done, which
and
I
then it's
love that.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's great. I mean, so for anyone who doesn't know, I guess thanks for listening. This is this is based off of the character Cassian Andor, who we were introduced to in the movie Rogue One, which for me is still a top tier Star Wars movie. It in my rankings is a top 3 traditionally. Can land anywhere in that top 3 spot on any given day for me. So this is a prequel to that, where we get to learn a little bit about the character of Cassian Andor, future hero of the rebellion, the
Future
proto
martyr.
rebellion. Yeah, yes, indeed. Spoiler alert: he doesn't live too much longer. If you haven't seen Rogue One, again, if you haven't,
Until
thanks
we
for
learn in
listening.
this show, BC, that that particular mission he was just a synthetic that they sent.
He was
So-
a synthezoid who was created. He is going to come back in his true Casa form uh, later. He can't die. Heroes can't die. Um, yeah, so we're gonna be, like I said, talking about those first 3 episodes. I do want to just do a quick as I can, blast through the story of these 3 episodes. Open up a little bit after that about some more of what we've already started talking about, things we liked, things we loved, production design, all that sort of stuff. But I just want to go through this as quick as I can to get both my brain up to speed for what we're going to talk about, maybe remind myself of some things, and some of you out there too. So I'm going to go chronologically. I've broken this down into the past and the present. So the
yeah,
story,
we got two timelines a going.
we're doing a classic cutting back and forth between timelines, which is a staple of, it seems like, everything these days. So we are going to be cutting between the past and the present. I don't believe we have a time on the past, but it's definitely a much younger Cassian Andor on the planet of Canary. And we meet him living with a group of fellow indigenous people on the
Do
planet
we know
Canary.
that for sure, though, BC? Is it like, did you get indigenous people from the Wikipedia, I guess is what I mean? Because what I was wondering, why are they only kids? Did they
Mm-hmm.
like crash land here years ago? Like I can't be certain about where they're from or why. I guess
I think I guess we don't know that. It's not for
yeah. I
sure.
mean, it seems like they're
We're
totally unfamiliar with spaceship tech, so maybe they're indigenous. But I
I
was
think
just
we're
like, I don't know their story.
no, and it's, I don't know. I can take some issues with some of how it's presented, but I think we are led to believe that these are indigenous people to Canary.
Okay.
Is the sense that I get. Um, So we meet them. They see what we will come to find out is an Imperial ship crashing out of the sky. They form a search party to go and investigate the crash. Casa leaves his younger sister, put a pin in that, behind to be a part of the search party. As they make their way to the crash, we see a massive amount of mining that has taken place on the planet Canary. The search party arrives at the down ship. We see dead Imperials who are looking a little green in the gills.
Are they? So they? I mean, they refer to them as or it's a Republic ship that's coming. So
I
it
guess
looks like
they're
they have CIS patches on their arms, but
I guess they're
I
proto
okay.
Imperials is kind of how it feels, just
Okay.
based off the tech inside of the ship. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
guess
I mean, it looks
Republic.
like the Tantive 4 and a little bit on the inside.
Yeah, so they. I guess yeah, it is. It's noted as Republic. A Republic frigate is what is
Okay.
circling above. That's going to be coming to them. Um, So the leader of the Canary search party is doing an investigation and is shot by one of the survivors of the crash. The Canaries then launch a volley of blow darts at the survivor. He is, I guess, killed by those darts. Is what it seems like.
He's
Um,
kerputted, yeah.
he is kaputted. The party disbands, but young Casa he boards the ship and does a little investigating. Sees his reflection starts to smash some things up in the ship. We are then introduced to Maarva Andor, a young and spry B2 emo, and an unnamed traveling companion. I don't know if we know
I'm
the man's.
assuming that's Cassian's father because
I
he
think
has Cassian's pistol.
yeah, that's.
Or
But we I
adoptive
don't.
father.
Yeah, adoptive father. Yeah, we I don't think we're given his name, but that
No.
is who I was assuming it was going to be because he's I think going to be later referenced in this episode. Um, so we do find out that the Republic ship is approaching the crash site. There is a bit of a language barrier because Cassian does not understand Maarva. Maarva does not understand Cassian. So she sedates him in an effort to save him and whisks the young boy away from his home planet and everything he knows and loves for a new life.
Because they're just gonna carpet bomb this place when they get here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's definitely painted as like, oh, it's if we're justifying that we're taking this boy,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Like it seems like they do have to do a little going out of their way to be like, it's fine that we're taking him,
yeah,
which is kind of concerning, but I guess
yeah,
it's nice that they are like, no, it's going to be really bad if we leave him here to die.
yeah,
So that's our justification for removing him from his home planet,
yeah.
and then taking him away. So we'll just say that's fine,
I'm
but
sure we'll get some follow up there. Yeah.
I'm really hoping we do. Yeah, I think it's important that there maybe is a little more follow up on that. So we see him escaping on the ship with Maarva, B2, and his adoptive father. And so that's the past timeline. In the present, which is going to be 5 BBY. Now, this is important to note because the way this series is going to be structured, the entire first season is going to be in the year 5 BBY. And then the 12 episodes in season 2, each 3 block of episodes is, from what I understand, going to be a year. So we're going to count
Awesome.
down five BBY season 1 episodes 1 through 3 are 4 BBY, 3 BBY, 2, 1, so on and so forth. So we're getting closer and closer to Rogue One in the timeline as we progress through the
And
story.
I've heard that he's gonna not cut his fingernails in between those years, so that we have a
He's gonna
visual representation of
Yeah,
how
he's
much,
gonna grow them out like
how
the
long.
Guinness Book of World Records guys.
Yeah, that whole track time visually.
Yeah, and then we see him ceremoniously cut them right before the
For
start
right
of
for
Rogue
Rogue
One
One, yeah.
picks up. So we're all clued into the same thing.
Cassian Andor, you gotta cut those things.
Cassian Andor, you can't keep growing those nails. You want to be a true hero of the rebellion. We'll get to that voice a little later.
Uh-huh.
So we are now in the present. It is 5 BBY. Cassian Andor is searching for his sister on Moriana 1 at a Star Warsian House of Pleasure. He is accosted by 2 local sentry guards from a corporate police force who are also at the Pleasure Den. After he is unsuccessful in finding his sister on his way out, he's accosted by these police guards and inadvertently kills one of them and
little
advertently kills the other one.
little funny there on my rewatch, BC. He kills that guy just by backwards headbutting him.
Yeah, it's a backwards headbutt murder. It's a classic.
Gets him right in the. Gets that brain, that nose bone into the brain, I guess, BC, if I'm to believe my grade school
My only
playground.
thinking, because it's, I don't know, we can break down the scene a little bit more later. I do want to run through this, but it is shocking and quick. My only thing is maybe it's the way he lands because he bashes him hard. Maybe he just like lands weird directly on his head and is dead. I don't know. But yes, he dies
Didn't bother me the first
inadvertently.
watch through. The second watch through, we were like, wait, what? How did he? But
He
anyway,
died by a head smash. His friend died by a blaster shot to the face.
yep.
More
Cassian
on that
shoots him.
from more on that from me later regarding that particular moment. Cassian returns to Ferrix, which is where he is now residing, and begins to tighten up his alibis with B2 Emo and Brasso. Great Star Wars name
Mhm.
for the murders he has just committed. We're then introduced to his main antagonist of our opening 3 episodes in a self-tailored and uniform modified visage of Deputy Inspector Karn. He is outraged by the death of 2 colleagues, but his superior officer is not as concerned. Again, more on this later because this scene is tasty. Who's just kind of like, don't worry about it, sweep it under the rug. But Deputy Inspector Karn, he's a man on a mission. He will not stand for this. And so he is going to form a search party essentially and try to get his man because he is so outraged. Cassian is going to meet with Bix, a local Ferrix friend of his, potentially past fling. Seems unclear, but definitely something there.
I think
To
they
work
might have canoodled a little bit in the past.
I think maybe they know their way around a Star Warsian pleasure den, if you know what I'm saying. He meets Bix as he works to set up the sale of a valuable Imperial NS9 Starpath unit with a buyer that Bix knows. We then learn that there is an APB. There's a warrant out on Ferrix for someone who sounds suspiciously like Cassian Andor, as the man who may have committed this murder. Cassian returns to his homestead to Maarva and B2 Emo, who alert him of the warrant that is out for his arrest. As he is plotting to go off-world, he meets again with Bix at a bar, who confirms that the buyer is coming to meet with Cassian. Tim, who is Bix's current lover, oversees this, and he flies into sort of a drunken, jealous moment, and he's going to rat out Cassian immediately because he doesn't want any competition. We are then introduced to Sergeant Linus Mosk, a real Scottish cop weasel, big Blue Lives Matter energy, who is very much in line with the outrage of Deputy Inspector Karn, and they are going to prepare a force to arrest Cassian Andor. We are also then introduced to Luthen, the man who talks like this,
Nice.
as he arrives on Ferrix and takes a very nice looking shuttle into town with a man with a lovely hat and mustache.
And
One
a
of
big
my
old Bluetooth.
he's just like straight up 2005 taking phone calls
Yeah.
about his boosters and add-ons that he can provide for you. The police force lands on Ferrix. There is the warrant out for Cassian Andor. They start to draw a crowd as they are closing in on Cassian. Luthen meets Cassian in the warehouse of chains, and it becomes apparent that Luthen is Luthen. I keep wanting to say Luthian. Luthen
Luthen. I
is
mean, either one sounds just as silly to me.
yeah. My name's Luthen, Cassian. Luthen is interested in more than just the Imperial tech that Cassian has and wants to recruit Cassian for a larger fight. Don't you want to fight these bastards for real? He asks. The town is rallying in opposition to the police force by clanging and banging on all sorts of things.
I saw an
As
air fryer basket. One guy
yeah,
just kind of like gingerly tapping an air fryer basket.
uh, first 3 episodes, big on clanging and percussion in general,
Uh-huh.
especially the guy at the top of the tower. You know, this
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
Boom,
Yeah.
boom,
Excellent.
boom, boom. Yeah, lots of great clanging on Ferrix, top notch stuff. Cassian and Luthen are they're being surrounded in the warehouse of chains. Luthen blows the door, killing 2 men as they are attempting to make their way out. Hey, that's rule 2, by the way. Build your exit on your way in.
Uh-huh.
Rule 1, of course, never carry anything you don't
Never talk
control.
about rule 2. Oh.
Yeah, don't talk about Fight Club. Rule 3, talk like this. And so there's a whole lot of chain action that happens as they get out of the facility. The main thing is that Luthen is recruiting Cassian. He's more interested in Cassian than he is the NS9 Starpath.
Which gets left in the dust.
left in the dust, and that thing's worth up to 40,000 credits. So I
Yeah.
mean, that is primo stuff. They head out of town searching for a speeder. Tim tragically shot. Oh no, Tim down, trying to save Bix, who has been suppressed by the police force. Generally, we see the police force beginning to scatter as their brilliant plan to arrest Cassian Andor on a hostile planet falls apart. Who could have seen that coming? Then we get Maarva with a great line saying, "That's what a reckoning sounds like. You want it to stop, but it just keeps coming. It's when it stops that when you really want to start to fret." As the clanging stops, we see the police force, real sixes and sevens here. They think they've got Cassian and Luthen as a speeder ship of some kind, some sort of local transport vehicle comes out. It's upended. They think they've got him. Oh no, they're not in there. Classic build your exit on the way in. They blow it. Some more corporate officers die.
Uh,
Cassian and Luthen escape to Luthen's shuttle on the speeder out of town. We are left with a nice little cello outro as we see the various faces of the people of Ferrix and what has just transpired.
well, they're drinking their
Thus,
trouble. They're drinking
thus
their troubles
endeth.
away. You know.
Yeah, they're drinking their troubles away. Thus endeth the first 3 episodes, the prologue. It feels like of the Andor series. I gotta say, first watch, I don't know that I was let down, but I maybe bought into some of the hype of everyone saying this is the greatest thing that's ever occurred, and so I was like, yeah, it's
I
good.
wasn't even aware of that hype. Where
I
was
was
that? I mean, I feel like I still haven't seen that.
I just from people I follow on Twitter, critics who had access to screeners,
Gotcha.
generally that sort of like it's oh my goodness, it's the best, and it was good, and I liked it the first time. I loved it the second time I watched it. There's a lot of, I would say my feelings about this. There's a lot of nuance in this that I probably missed on a first watch because I wasn't expecting that level of nuance
Yeah,
in
we
a
don't
Star Wars
usually get
show
it.
because we have not had that. It was definitely not there in Kenobi, which again, we love things, but we can take umbrage with with how some of them are produced and made. So we're big Kenobi boys, but there are things where like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a lot of the ridiculous in
No,
this.
I everything clicked for me. BC. Oh, I did want to mention one more thing in the plot.
Yeah.
Cassian does not shoot his antagonist, even though he
Yes.
ties him up. Uh, doesn't shoot him. Anyway,
Yeah.
it clicked so, so much for me when you were like, "Hey, the production designer is the production designer from Chernobyl," and I was like, "Oh." I had a revelation so deep, BC, where I was like, it made so much sense to me when he said that. I was like, that makes so much sense. That's exactly what my brain was trying to like compare it to, which didn't make much sense. And I think production design, that's the most important thing in any work of fiction for me. Because
It's
I watch Blade Runner over and over. Blade Runner
yeah.
isn't an amazing plot or like like it doesn't have incredible character scenes all the way through. But if you've got a realistic looking world, I can
Mhm.
suspend my disbelief so much better. And that level of care in the production design, I think, is just like it's there everywhere in this show so far.
Yeah,
Um,
and we'll go out of our way to point several of those things out. I do want to note I listened to so this is the showrunner is Tony Gilroy,
uh huh.
who's famous for the Bourne movies. He wrote
Never
Michael
seen one.
Clayton. He's largely responsible for a lot of what's good about Rogue One. Uh, he's a fantastic writer. I listened to an interview with him. Shout out to another podcast that has about probably hundreds of thousands of listeners, which is The Watch on the Ringer Network. But they got Tony Gilroy on the show. And to the point about production design, what I loved was he said he was talking about the show, and he's like, the first conversations that I have going into this is with my production designer, right? Like he's like that's where I'm going to begin everything for
Thank
what we're going to do.
goodness.
And I mean, you being a film major from Central Arkansas, obviously,
Film minor, film minor.
oh, film minor. Sorry, film minor. A minor, but you might as well have been a major. You were so good at it. Um,
Yeah.
the importance of production design on something, the details to which uh, a production can go into are incredibly important. You know, working in the world of student film, it's like, hey, can we borrow this location and shoot in here because we have access to it, not because it's what we need,
Right.
want, or desire, but because it's available. That's one thing. But when you have control over sets, costumes, light,
Oh, the
sound,
costumes.
the feel
Things
of
are
everything,
dirty.
it
It's
it makes such a
violent.
like the Ferrex feels like such you the fact that you can see their breath as they're breathing, like it's cold there, like you
Yeah.
get the sense that this is it's not an easy place to live, like it's dirty, it's run down, it's I mean they're
It's tight
uh,
knit.
yeah, they're stripping ships for parts. Like it feels like Pittsburgh in the winter would, and like a steel city. Like it feels lived in. There's texture to
There are aliens.
everything.
There.
There's aliens, but they're not in abundance, and it doesn't go out of their way to be like, look at the alien.
Well, I think they are in abundance to the point where you don't even look at the alien, I guess, is like if you look at the
Yeah,
amount of bodies versus like Anchorhead and Obi-Wan was like a bunch of people in brown cloaks,
right.
like disheveled. This is like just the background has a bunch of background aliens that aren't there to draw your attention so much as it's just like
That's
the Star
that's
Wars texture.
that's the thing. It's because a lot of times, like, look at this creature we made that doesn't really serve a purpose. They just feel like they're part of the environment.
Yeah.
So I think it is felt how much they look at this and say, okay, let's talk about production design as much as we're going to talk about story, which obviously is important, but production design, as someone who's been lately working on in films and doing that sort of stuff, is like what you really want to do is give as much texture to the story that you're creating, because it's part of the story. It's part of the visual language of what you're telling. It's going to reinforce and make better the story that you've already got. I think part of what we've seen with Book of Boba Fett, with Kenobi, is that some of that kind of got lost. Maybe, and it's how much of that is due to shooting during COVID and the
Yeah.
constraints that happened there. I mean, that's all stuff that's understandable. But it feels like this show, even with the COVID constraints, went out of the way to be like, this needs to be at the heart of what we're doing, is how this looks and feels. So huge shout out to the show for being just top notch on production design.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean literally Chernobyl, like I came away from that show being like, wow, the production design. Oh my. It was incredible. And
Mamma
like
mia.
bring it to Star Wars. And yeah, VC, the other thing about that for me is just like if that's important, it's the Star Wars world. But I can't think of very other or other shows in general that look this good in HD. I'm constantly like, people's shirts look wrong in digital to me. They just came out of the closet. Somebody's
Mm.
wearing like, and regardless of I don't know, COVID and affecting things or not, you can see the money on the screen here, which makes me feel less like an idiot, because I feel like an idiot sometimes when I'm giving my money to one of the biggest corporations in the world who's supposedly spending millions and millions of dollars on the product I'm watching, and it looks like it was made for television like 10 years ago or so. It just looks a little thin. This thing looks expensive, which like I need that. I need that to justify being like, I'm a big Disney fan. you know.
Yeah, it I don't know, it looks it looks head and shoulders above what the at least the last two things that Star Wars has put out on the D plus, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think going forward they should take notes on everything that this show has done in terms of production, because it's to me it's like it's not quite film level, right? Like it still doesn't have quite the visual sense that say Rogue One has, but for a TV show, it's miles above what they've produced so far, and it's on par with the visual language of other top tier shows. So it's almost like a relief to finally see them catching up to what I
Yeah,
think the
yeah,
expectation has always been
yeah,
for at least for the last two shows. Like, hey, it would have been cool if you had done this for Kenobi. It would have been
yeah.
cool if you had done this for Book of Boba Fett too.
If we hadn't have seen the volume so clearly,
Yeah, and yeah, the volume in Kenobi, I was volumed out. I was like, we need to rethink some stuff. This was like a breath of fresh air. Having sets, having textures. I mean, there are still some things where it's like, yes, it's flat, but it's not in the volume. There are very real, tangible set pieces that were made for this.
yeah,
So that was nice to see.
yeah. So here's to that. Um,
Cheers to that.
should we get into discussing maybe some of our favorite characters in this show, VC?
Our faves. Yeah, let's jump into our favorite characters. We've prepared a list of five.
Yeah, but
So
if
there,
we
there
if
may
we share the same characters on our lists, we won't be
well,
doing five each. Just
we
consolidate.
will both be speaking of our love of those characters. I want to start with a character who I was shouting out just a little bit earlier. I'm calling him because I don't believe he's got a character name. Sentry Guard who is shot in the face.
Yeah, yeah,
Sentry Guard who is shot in the face. I picked him as one of my top five characters because this actor goes out of his way to give a top tier performance in his like 1.5 scenes that he has in a Star War.
and it's so important because it's the opening 1.5 scene. It's
It
like critical.
it's it's incredibly critical, and the way that he sells this moment to essentially be a fantastic scene partner for Diego Luna,
Yeah,
as he's legitimately like begging and pleading for his life, which is only going to up the stakes for our hero Andor when he blasts him in the face. Because there's a certain point where you as the viewer are kind of like, hey, maybe don't, maybe don't shoot the guy in the face. And then when he does, you're like, oh, this is how cold this is.
see,
It,
I that whole time was going, please shoot him in the face, please shoot him in the face. I
I
don't-
mean, I get it, but he's giving a performance that can make you
yeah,
doubt that Cassian's going to do it.
yeah,
When he does it, it ties back so well to our introduction to Cassian in Rogue One, where he's gonna shoot the guy who's got the limp who can't escape with him. You're like, oh yeah, Cassian Andor. Like
yeah,
it's a reminder of who this character is. But the way that he takes that little bit of a scene that he has and just is like, I'm gonna dial this up to 150, uh, was a great indication of what this show is gonna be essentially right off the bat.
yeah.
So one of my top five characters, Sentry Guard, who is shot in the face.
Well, that was one of my top five as well, BC. I think he's great in that opening bar scene too, which is like okay, because that can easily be like okay, I get it. We're in dark Star Wars. We're in a brothel. Like cool.
Mm-hmm.
And if it would have had the performance quality of some of the Boba Fett stuff, it would have been really cheesy. Um,
Cheesaroni.
but also, something that I love about this show is that yes, the bad guys are fascists who deserve to die,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean you can't humanize them. It
Right.
doesn't make it doesn't make the enemies less despicable for you to identify with them in some ways. Like so yeah, I love that this is the world that Cassian lives in, and that he's smart enough to know, like, nah, dude, I gotta kill this guy.
This
Like,
guy's got to go. Yeah.
it's not gonna go well for me if I enter the justice system like
And
with
and
his
you
word.
it's I don't know. I love that without having to explain everything that's happened before. It's like, oh, he knows what he's doing. He's done it before, and he knows exactly the consequences of the actions that he just took. Like that. That it's. I mean, that's the thrust of what's going to happen. It's like this is the obviously it's the inciting action or incident, or whatever you want to call it, that sets his story in motion. Like, yeah, I murdered two fairly important people, but it's not like I haven't done something similar, and I know my way to sort of start getting around this. I've got to go start making alibis, start working my way off planet. But it's, I don't know, you just get so much character without having to have your hand held and told who
Yes.
this is. You are given moments and story beats that inform you and performance that informs you, as opposed to exposition, exposition, exposition. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's
the
layers
show
and depth to it.
trusts its audience a little bit for the first time in a long time for Star Wars.
I mean, it feels almost cliche, but it is much more adult. You know, like that.
Yeah.
It's clearly aimed at a more mature audience. We get shit is canonical in Star Wars. Oh goodness, everyone's talking about it. But like, yeah, it's aimed at a more mature audience, which feels nice because there are Star Wars fans of different ages. Andor's probably not going to be as appealing to a 9-year-old,
Yeah.
and
I don't
that's
know.
okay.
A 9-year-old might love it. Might, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I would have, but yeah, it's not. It's a little
I'll say this.
confusing to have your main hero open
I'll
up
say this.
shooting someone in the face.
I don't think a 9-year-old is going to understand this as much as they will
That's
Kenobi, because
yeah,
Kenobi's going to hold your hand.
fair.
Book of Boba Fett's going to hold your hand. This is fun Star Wars, but there's layers and depth here that I had to unpack on a second watch, and I'm pretty well versed in interpreting story at this
Yeah,
point in
yeah.
my life. So it's like, yeah, there's a little more to this than your typical Star War.
Well, let me bring up one of my favorite characters, and I believe one of yours as well, VC, and that's Chief Inspector what's his face.
Hyde.
Hyde, Chief Inspector Hyde. And this was a moment where I got really excited about the show. Because Chief Inspector Hyde is, the head of this corporate security force. And oh man, I identify with this character so much. I feel like this is who I am in my life, where I'm part of a terrible system. Like not super proud of the work that I do. But I try not to make things awful, like I try to not make the world a terrible place.
Yeah.
He's like, so this report comes into the murders, and we have also in the scene is did you say his name is Karn? That's
Yes,
right.
Deputy Inspector Karn.
Deputy Inspector Karn, who's an overzealous, person trying to rise through the ranks and wants to get the murder. To which this the chief inspector, who I don't know this actor, but I love it so much. His performance in this, where he's just like, listen, this looks like some guys are being assholes. They tried to hassle someone, they got killed. Like we don't know, we can't.
It's it's funny. I don't know if it's interesting to me because it's not what you would expect, right? Like typically from the bad guy fascistic side of Star Wars that we see, normally it is going to be, we are the Empire, we are going to crush this.
Yeah,
This is like a guy who's like, this is bureaucratic bullshit, and I don't have time to deal with this.
yeah,
And it was the second watch when I was like, he is so clear sighted about this incident and why it's not worth pursuing, that you're like, yeah, he's right. Like, there's no need to pursue this, which sets up the deputy to be like a
yeah,
great antagonist, because he's like, no, justice must be served. I will be the hand of justice. You're like, listen to your boss, who's like, hey, they shouldn't have been there. It sounds like they were doing something wrong in a place that they shouldn't have been, and they might have gotten what they deserved, because I remember working with this guy. He was a total douchebag.
yeah,
So, I don't have a lot of sympathy for this particular situation. Also, I have to go report to the higher ups about the level of crime right now, and the point of that is brevity, and not to get into why we've got 2 dead officers on the
yeah,
planet.
yeah,
So let's just not. And he leaves, and Karn is like, I heard what he just said, but I'm going to do the opposite. And you're like, what a knob. This guy, it sets him up so well, too, to be
yeah.
like, what a weasel.
We know exactly where his arc is going, and like
Yes.
that's such a more compelling. Like I saw someone, on Twitter, just like a generic post of a bunch of pictures of of Anakin and Vader, and it was like, has anyone ever had a better character arc than Anakin Skywalker? And I was like, yes, absolutely, of course, like
Yes. Yeah.
100%. But this Karn, that character has a better arc in these 3 episodes. Like, I'm not gonna say a better arc than Anakin Skywalker or whatever. I'm just saying there's so much work done in his character in these 3 episodes, and he's also on my list. I don't know if he's on yours.
Karn.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not on my list, but he easily could have been.
But
The
just
right to the point, the writing of this is, I think, just on a different level
yeah,
because
I mean, there's a
it,
point where the chief inspector is talking over him. He's like, I heard you," or whatever, and I'm like, we don't get that in Star Wars. We don't get like realistic dialogue.
yeah, I mean, the first two characters are totally. I mean, they have a scene each, basically, right?
Yeah,
But it is the way they are written. I mean, huge shout out to the performances too.
yeah,
The way that they're performed, that sell so much of what we're doing, and it's. I don't think it's a coincidence that they're both up top in episode one, that they do so much heavy lifting in such unsung roles,
yeah.
right? Like Sentry Guard who's shot in the face. Okay, great. Like you can go in an audition for that and be like, all right, great, I'm a Sentry Guard who's shot in the face. This actor goes in and is like, I'm gonna give an Emmy Award performance in this one role that I've got because it's what the story demands.
Yeah.
Like as a director who's had to work with actors before who have small roles or smaller parts in a larger production, sometimes it can be hard to get people to invest and buy into those parts,
Yeah.
right? Like whether it's an ego thing with, because I've worked a lot with young actors, whether it's an ego thing of like, oh, I don't have a part. It's like, I need you to understand you are an integral part of the story that we are telling. If I can't get you to invest 100% in your performance, you are going to make this production worse.
Yeah.
I do not want that to happen. I want you to give 100%, even in your small part, because we are telling a story. It's not about me. It's not about you. It is about the story. And you get that investment from these actors in these small roles that are just like mind-blowingly good, like
Yeah.
mind-blowingly good. Uh, I was shocked on the rewatch by the quality of what I saw in these scenes, where it's just like, oh man, this is like top level, just coming in off the bench, hitting a 3-pointer, making a block on defense, coming down, hitting another three, and then hitting the bench. You're like, wow, okay, amazing,
It,
amazing performances.
it's real TV. It's like a
Yeah,
real TV show. That's
yeah.
what I was thinking in that scene. I was like, look, I'm in, and the production design was part of it because that was, more and more as I'm watching this thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, they got the old computer tech. They're not going to shy away from that at all. In fact, they're going to highlight it. But we got, immediately Karn is like, I think the opening thing is even like, did you change your uniform? And he's like, oh yeah, I
Yes.
sewed some piping on the pockets. Whereas like the chief looks like he's in coveralls, so like it's the
Hmm.
same uniform, but it's lived in. And it's
It's I'm uh quick tease. We're gonna talk about our favorite scene. That's it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and there's a little bit more that we can add to it. I don't want to do it too much in the character section, but yes, everything that we've said about that scene, I love for such small detail reasons that I think it's fantastic. So we've got Chief Inspector Hyde, Sentry Guard, who is shot in the face.
and we
Uh,
talked about Karn a little bit. That's enough talking about Karn. I just like
Deputy
his,
Inspector
I like
Karn.
his arc. I like where we're going with it. It's good.
Yeah,
Got all his
yeah.
men killed for being overzealous.
It's
It's
uh,
beautiful.
there's more I want to talk about Karn too, but we'll do it in another second.
Okay.
Uh, quick hit B2 Emo. I like B2 Emo. Fun little droid character.
I
Like
was
the
mixed
voice.
at first because it just sounds like Conky from Pee Wee's Playhouse. Pee Wee. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't. Especially since we cut directly from like someone getting shot in the face to Pee Wee. But on a rewatch, I enjoyed it. I liked him.
Quick hit B2 Emo. Love him. I don't want to go through this list without giving recognition to Cassian Andor.
Oh yeah.
I think Diego Luna. I don't know. There was some annoying. I I don't want to even pay attention to this, but there's all the like crappy people out there who respond to stuff from their like, this is woke, whatever. Why is Diego Luna a leading man? Because he's a leading man.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Go sit
Clearly he's
down.
got chops.
He's fantastic in this role. Bringing back a character that he's already played before, fleshing him out. Uh, Setting us up to go on a journey to where he is eventually going to be. I think I'm just excited to watch him throughout this entire 24 episode run.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be like a top tier Star Wars character by the end of this, just because of the level of writing that he has and the quality of performance that he's going to give. So shout
Yeah.
out to Cassian, and then I'm also going to add Luthen. Cassian Andor.
Oh
I
man.
love Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah,
I
I
think
do too.
he's fantastic. It's going to be a treat to see him continue in the show as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you. Not a ton to say about him. He's got a cool cane.
Yeah.
It's nice. They have another well done scene where he's got like a guy you should be suspicious of in the in the plane with him, like, or in
Yes.
the taxi. But yeah, he's cool. He's also well versed in action.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Any other top 5 characters for you?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not already on the list.
The leader of the tribe or indigenous group or whatever, whoever the group in the past is,
The Canary,
the girl, yeah,
lead hunter or
yeah.
whatever.
I don't know. I thought that was an incredible performance from someone who has not much to do. Again, I just thought she was well cast. I liked watching her a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I also love that those scenes weren't subtitled. Oh my goodness, I thought it was great. But yeah. So there's another character for you, BC.
Fantastic. I mean, there's no sure. I mean, the thing that I love is I had a hard time. I love Brasso, who
Yeah,
just is a small character who's ready to create an alibi for Cassian. Bix also fantastic. Marva is great
yeah.
in her time. Like, just fantastic performances all around. So
Hammerman,
the Hammerman getting ready to do his hammering,
love
like
it.
the ritual of that. Like, you love to see that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
So early on, we've got some characters. We're going to be meeting some new ones next week because we are going to be just taking a decidedly left turn from our prologue first 3 episodes as we head into parts unknown for young Cassian Andor.
yeah,
Um, so I just want to piggyback. We talked a lot about it. Our favorite scene in terms of the Chief Inspector Hein and Deputy Inspector Karn. You touched on it too. The fact that the costuming becomes part of the character beat, like that's the sort of integration in production design and character that you're like, that's just thinking that little extra bit that adds so much more to this moment,
yeah.
right? He could easily have just been in a thing, but I love the fact he's like, have you altered your uniform? Oh yes, I've done some piping and some minor tailoring. You're like, immediately the look and the feel of this guy, you're like, ah, like it's, I can't describe, like it's so, it feels so weird for us to be talking about this little scene, relatively minor scene, but the way it introduces characters that integrates everything about film is on another level brilliant, and I don't think we can stress that enough.
It was very important. It was
Yeah.
like, it's when I realized I was going to watch all 3 episodes. I think I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then when you see the costume, you see that also the yes man behind him, who should also be in my top 5,
Yeah.
because he's great. He's
Yeah.
really good. He also has the piping on his uniform. Like he's tailored it up too. He's just like
Yeah.
these 2 zealous assholes.
Yeah.
And something my fiance said watching it was like, that's exactly how it works. There's just a super big douchebag who's gonna ruin everything for everybody, and it just takes that one other asshole,
Yes.
and then it's over. It's like it just takes the one, the
I
one
I
yes
wanted to
man.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out this because I didn't really know where to fit it in sort of our favorites list here. But honorable mention for the um for favorite scene, which is the end of episode 3, after they've sort of escaped from the warehouse, and we see the the inspectors and his little deputy, his little sergeant friend.
Yeah,
We see them coming face to face with the reality of what their actions are,
yeah,
right? Like this idea that these overzealous cops are going to another planet to enforce something that they have been told doesn't matter, but
yeah,
they're going to do it anyway, and they're going to go and we're going to enforce our will because we are in charge of this place. We know best. We are going to get stuff done. As they see that they've gotten people killed,
yeah,
they've gotten their own men killed. Like the moment when, like, over the comms they hear like there's two of them and they're heavily armed, you just see them like, oh shit, um this is not going how we thought it would go,
yeah,
because the reality of what that is slapping them in the face, and you're seeing that reflected in the performance too of, I think we might have made a mistake in what we're doing. If only we had listened to the old wizened Chief Inspector Hyde, who knew that we had no business doing this or being here, but because we are pompous in our authority and in our force, we're going to go forward with it. As you see that like crumble around them as they're making that escape, and they start to like scatter and there's confusion and chaos going on, that scene, it reminded me of how well a city scene can be done when compared to the big fuck you battle at the end of Book of Boba Fett that is almost
yeah,
incoherent
yeah,
compared to what we saw at the end of this, which is like dramatic, the pace, the score, everything was like the clanging, the silence, like was brilliantly structured to tell the end of this story in a coherent way
yeah,
that the Book of Boba Fett was incapable of doing. Where like again, everything led to the dramatic action of the story being clear, concise, and meaningful. That the clanging pays off when it becomes silence. That the fear that starts to set in as everything they thought that they were going to do because we're important and we're in charge is falling, like they are falling flat on their face in that moment, is top level action storytelling. It
yeah.
is so good.
Yeah,
So
there's
good.
a reason to care about the explosions and the pew pews, and also people take cover adequately. Oh my gosh, we finally have people hiding from lasers like they might get killed. Which is that's a big deal for me. You see,
Um, yeah, so that's
like
I just
even
wanted
that
to
point
shout
where
that out.
Karn is like, "Are we just gonna stand here in the middle of the street?" And I was like, "Hopefully not in this show,
Oh,
man."
yeah, yeah.
You would have in Boba Fett.
Yeah, the sergeant's like, point taken. He's like,
Yeah.
split up, like, let's not stand in the middle of the street because we are about to die. Like, we are not welcome here and we are not in charge. Like, just some of the performance stuff that you get from them, like just reactions to shots that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is quality.
Yeah.
There is a quality here that has not been present in other things.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, BT. Um, so does that wrap up our character, or we just did favorite scene?
We've got
Uh,
character, we've got scene. Let's talk.
so,
Let's do set or
yeah,
production piece.
yeah. Um,
What stood out to you? Is there a favorite set? Is there a favorite production piece, prop?
it's so difficult, right? Because it's all so good, and
Yeah, I
like
know.
the control room, or the room in the crash ship is
Yeah,
like it's amazing. It's exactly what I want in Star Wars, but it's also like very much relying on what's been done before. Like
yep,
it's a visual aesthetic we've established. Whereas like a lot of the apartments on the planet are kind of a little newer and also just as good. But one thing, like the thing that stands out to me most is kind of epitomizing the production elements I love of this show is there's a moment where Karn's like standing outside of a door and he's nervous. He's like trying to hype himself up. And the wall is like that Duraplast wall that's got dirt on it in a way that doesn't look scene painted. Like it's just the subtlety of like how lived in that hallway looks. Like that's what the whole show is doing for me, is like believable, like lived in used future. And they go in and they use the circular computer screen with the dots going across. And
Mm-hmm,
Star Wars has been hiding from Star Wars tech for so long. They're like, oh, it doesn't make sense. No, just lean in. And they use that computer for a sequence, you know, to say, oh, here's a ship. And like you can believe, okay, here are the trade routes, here are like the flight
right.
paths, and these are just like you can believe that that's the universe they live in for a second, like, or at least I can. And it's so refreshing to have that computer in use. And the same with like the telephones work with only 4 buttons. You know, you got to do multiple presses on each. Like it's Morse code. Like I don't know, just the
Yeah,
computers are my favorite prop or my favorite piece of the scenery. I guess is
I
what I'm saying.
the moment with the tracking the flights, you do buy that completely. You're like, oh, that's the route that this ship would have taken, because it's all part of Karn tracking down, following his lead, that because he's a go get him kind of guy, figuring out where Cassian's ship was heading to. So it's like, yes, we're going to use the technology that's in front of our faces and point it out and make it clear what's happening. It's not just a piece in the background that looks like good set decoration, which it
Yeah,
does. It looks like great set decoration, right? That you've got the curved lines, the lights that are moving around on it, but to give us the exact, here's the nature of what this is and here's what's happening, I thought was fantastic.
yeah.
I also want to shout out, this is a prop thing, but the what is it called, the S9
Oh
star
yeah,
path
yeah,
thing. That
yeah,
thing looks sick as
yeah,
hell.
yeah. That was
Uh,
also cool.
I love that. Again, I did like the down ship, the interior of that I thought was
Yeah.
great. Um, and this is
Oh,
just that.
you're back.
Am I?
Sorry, it was just a
Uh,
little hiccup.
okay, I was just gonna say the the one that I really loved was uh the maroon and yellow little shuttle that Luthen takes with our
Yeah,
Bluetooth guy.
yeah. It's
I love
great.
that thing. I
Yeah,
loved that thing.
it looks like it's real in the shot too, or at least it did on my TV when it's landing. I'm like, that doesn't look like CG. That looks great.
It- and it just felt like, it served, like, the color palette of it served the purpose
Ah, the
to say
color
what
palette.
this thing
Yeah,
is, right? Like, that, yes, we can shuttle you back and forth to something, but it's like, this is the sky train that you have to take to get from the airport to the city. Like,
yeah,
that resonates with me as someone who used to live in New York and be like, you've got to take this particular train to go from here to there. This felt like this is, and it felt like of a time. It felt like a little, it felt dated, it felt lived in, it felt old. It felt like something of, like you're looking at something from the 40s or 50s. Like, it had that sort of patina and age to it, but the clear indication that, like, this is for human transport and it's was built as part of an infrastructure on where we live.
yeah,
I was
yeah. And
like,
it's written
yes.
in a way that's not crazy exposition. Like an excuse to have the scene where it's like we're circling. You know, like this is infrastructure. Like it
Yeah.
sucks here too. Like
Yeah. Yes. Again, the detail on all of it, on the and it took me the second watch to gather all of that detail, to be like, oh, this is on another level. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Like, it's those small things that on the first time you're like, oh, this is fun. But it's those small things when you watch it the second time, you're like, I just appreciate this so much more for what they're giving us with all of this stuff. Again, production design, incredibly, incredibly
So
important.
it's so good.
Um,
And then you got another great British actor in that scene
yeah,
too, being like,
that guy just comes off the bench again.
yeah,
He's just firing darts,
and
man.
it's
He's in.
perfect at like it perfectly like I don't know if you're just a nice guy or if you're up to something. Like it's like he's so good at like hitting that. Like it's a little bit too friendly. We all know that guy.
Yeah, it's like, anytime you're on a train and you're in public transportation, a lot of times, like,
Please don't
Please
talk to me. Nobody
do not
talk.
talk to me. Please, no one talk to me. I don't want to start a conversation with anybody. And then there's the guy who does. And you're like, you feel like you're just like, oh, great, fantastic. Someone is going to ask me about stuff. All right, I love it. Yeah, but
Oh,
again, like it's so simple. But you throw that character in, and that scene has so much more depth.
I gotta mention the security ship with the drop ships. I thought that
Oh
was a
yeah, yeah,
cool
yeah.
design, both interior and exterior. And of course, I love the Briar pistol. It's got to be my favorite prop, PC,
I figured. Yeah, I
because
was like,
Andor's got a Briar pistol, and it seems to have emotional significance. Wonder how he's gonna
I,
lose it.
I mean, I wonder when that's gonna come and hit the market because I'd love a replica of that. It looks amazing.
Yeah,
Seeing that thing in
love to see it.
action, whenever he holds it to Karn's
And
head
it
at the
does
end,
the
and he's
little
zzz,
flippity
yeah,
flop,
amazing,
which is new.
lovely.
I mean, I've never seen that in animation before, but I love it.
Yeah, works great on in live action. Fantastic stuff. All right, finally, well, let's wrap it up. A favorite sound or sound design element?
Yeah, VC. That's like there's not like a noise that stuck out to me specifically. So much as like the depth of the sound design being full is kind of more my favorite thing. Like one example is when he enters the nightclub. He's like, hey, we don't do the weapons, and then when he comes out. You have that again, just like very quiet in the background as he's leaving, where it's like, oh, we're in a living world. Got it. There's like other people out and about. And that happens kind of several times. Anytime there's a crowd scene, it feels like people are actually living somewhere.
Yeah, I'll go more. I'll skew more towards I guess score in terms of
Oh,
the
wow.
sound.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it's brilliant, but
really good.
the end of episode 2 where you cut down from that transport ship that
There's just
Luthen is
some
on,
shirtless drummer like going
like
ham.
it's like a legitimate like rock banger track where you're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like hype music. Shout out to that. My actual winner is the end of episode 3. The cello, it's like it sounds definitely like cello scoring that's going on as we're just sort of left in the aftermath of everything that's occurred, and we're cutting between the faces of all these wonderful actors. About the underscoring that's happening there, it just left me like starting to feel a sense of like wonder and excitement about who these characters are, what their story is, and if I never see them again, I mean, it will be tragic, but the moment that it gave me as an audience member to see, it cuts to Brazo,
Yeah.
who's a relatively minor character, but the look that guy is giving as he's taking in what has been an
He just
incredibly,
killed a man.
yeah, there's an incredibly traumatic event that has just occurred on this planet that like you can tell it's not just gonna be like, all right, we're off to our next space adventure. Like we have to live with this tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we on this planet are gonna have to deal with this shit that just happened, which is significant.
Death
Because
is real in this show. Yeah.
if they thought those the two guys who were more murdered on Orana 1 was something like, oh, an entire force basically just got blown away because they decided to invade this planet. This seems like it's going to be a big deal, and the cello sounds going underneath that like underscores all of that in these great performances. Again, there's just something about the synthesis of every element of this show being weaved together in a way that you're like, yeah, this is just how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah,
is how
yeah.
this is the base expectation of how good expensive TV should be done. We've
Yeah.
missed it in the last 2 productions. It's here, and I'm so grateful.
That's what I get frustrated about, for missing is just like the money isn't the issue. Like in a lot of
Right.
other things, you can be like the money's the issue. Here it's
Right.
not. And I think they've done a good job with I really like the Mando and Boba Fett soundtracks. I like the new track and the new Mando trailer. But I'm so glad Star Wars is experimenting with different kinds of music, and I love the
Mhm.
the mix of kind of like 80s synth stuff popping up just a little bit in this. I feel like it's just right. Like it's not overdone. It just complements the more traditional elements of that beautiful soundtrack.
Wonderful, wonderful
Wonderful.
stuff. I legitimately don't have anything bad to say. I mean, tiny nits to pick. It'd be nice to know more about Maarva taking Cassian from his homeworld and getting a little more explanation on that. Uh, but
The dude who died from a headbutt, a little weird.
yeah, yeah. But
That's kind
generally,
of it.
yeah. But generally, everything I have is just it's so. Obviously, we've been lauding praise on it for a while now, but just thinking about it practically from a production standpoint that's upholding what is already a well written story. It's like a breath of fresh air to have something like this. And it's just it's incredibly exciting to have another episode coming out on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm stoked, BC. I think I am gonna miss. I almost, after watching this, there was a part of me that was like, I don't even want to see the Empire right now. Like I love the scale of this where we are, and I just get nervous about, I don't know, about something working worse. But I should really just, shut up and enjoy the ride, because I know at the very least I'm going to love the production design, and that will take me far. But if these
I,
3 episodes were a movie, BC, it'd be up in my very top tier. Even if this was just like
it's
the end of it, I'd be like, all right, cool.
it's up there. Yeah, it's good. Which and not just us being like it's Star Wars, so it's good. It's legitimately good.
Yeah.
Um, for all of the myriad reasons we have laid out on this very episode.
Well, BC, sorry. I always get a little bit messy when I'm excited about something.
No, I think the mess is good. We because this is the most I've been able to unpack my thoughts and talking about them and speaking about them is it can be messy, but darn fun. I'll
Yeah,
say.
yeah. It was really. I was just in like a great mood after I watched it for like 2 or 3 days. I was like, wow, that was really fun.
Good Star Wars. Yeah.
And for me, I love The Mandalorian.
Mhm.
Like I will always love that show, but it is like it's a little silly and it's a little flat, and that's just like that's part of it. It's part of why it's good too, is because it's silly and like flat. Like it's like here we go on an
It's
adventure. To me, this has more rewatch value.
mhm.
I care about it more, and again, I think it's really opened my eyes when I think about the things that I like. I'm like, oh yeah, I like things that have really, really like well done production design and expensive production design. And this is that. I couldn't believe how many locations we got. We got more real sets in these 3 episodes than I think we've had in Star Wars in the past, like 20
We'll put it.
years, maybe.
We'll paint the floor of the volume a different color. Hey, there's a new set. Throw some sand over there. There's a new set. All right, great. Yeah, no, this was not that. This was a welcome departure.
Do you have any predictions going forward, BC?
I don't. No, I really don't. I predict that I'm going to enjoy the ride. I mean, I mean, they're not really predictions because we've seen some stuff of what is to come, but I think the scope and the scale is going to shift dramatically. We got a very certain tone and feel in these 3 episodes. I'm looking forward to the shiny sheen of the world of Mon Mothma and the world of Luthen and where he comes from and how that intersects with a world like Ferrex and a character like Cassian.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what the internet rumor mill's been spinning up, which is Obi-Wan's gonna be in the show. And I'm like, please, please don't put Obi-Wan in the show. I love Ewan McGregor, I love Obi-Wan. But no, let's not let's not bring in anybody. Mon Mothma's enough for me. And
Yeah.
we're gonna see Saw Gerrera, right?
Yep. He's
That'll be
definitely in
cool.
this. Yep. He's absolutely in this. Uh, Maybe K2SO at a certain point as Cassian's
Yeah,
companion.
makes sense.
I feel like that's going to make sense. I mean,
Yeah,
it makes sense for him to be in the story at some point because of the relationship that they have in Rogue One,
yeah.
and certainly that he is seemingly going to be infiltrating the Empire because that's what he knows how to do, and that is where K2 comes from. So we'll see that at some point, I'm sure, which will be fun. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what is in store for us as we explore more things.
Well, let us know what you think out there, y'all. Drop us a line, drop us a comment, leave us a tweet,
Tweet
or
tweet.
just talk to your friends.
Yeah, let
But we
them
want you
know.
to feel that we're your friends, except we don't know you personally.
Oh, but except we may, because our
Yeah,
listenership
I
is
guess
probably the
that's
4 people that we do know. So
hi
we love you all
Paulette.
for listening. Hey, how's it going? How's it going, Paulette? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
looking forward to
that's
seeing where this goes, BC. It's gonna be a great time.
and we will be talking about episode 4. And don't worry about that Star Wars Adventure Journal. We haven't forgot it. We'll talk about that as well next week. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, we're I think it's time to log off Cargo Bay. Shout outs to Cassian Andor episodes 1 through 3. I've been BC. That has been
The cargo bay
sure, yeah,
episode 27.
one of our patented sign offs.
Bye forever.